Hi, hello, I'm Liz and I'm from Astara Studio. I'm very excited today because I have a wonderful woman here today that I'd like to introduce you to. Her name is Tshego and she is super talented. She comes from the world of production, so specifically television. She's also launched a really cool web series on YouTube that you can see there, and she's a published author. So how did you start? Tell me a little bit about where you started, your background. Yeah. How did you end up in television? I know you worked for SABC, you worked for ETV.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's such a long story because I've been working in the industry since 2006. Originally from the Northwest Province, but I came to Joburg in 2000 to study at Boston Media House, because I always knew I wanted to work in television. And so I studied media studies diploma, and I did my video production and public relations. And that sort of led me to the world of production. I started off as a production runner, and then I was a production coordinator, really working my way up from the bottom. But my big break sort of came in 2006 when I was part of a program called Sediba workshops, and they were training like newbie producers, working with more experienced producers. They brought on script editors to train trainee script editors. They were like directors, and people from the SABC were there, the commissioning editors. And through that experience, coming in as a trainee script editor, I got to like work with people who I think are phenomenal, It opened the doors for a lot of us, be it in producing or directing. And from there, I just sort of, my career started growing, and then from being a trainee script editor, I then joined the SABC as an assistant commissioning editor. I was there from 2008 to 2010. And just before I left the SABC, I started writing my first book, Poetry of Love, which I wrote by hand in 3 months. I was just always wanting to explore. I know, right? That's never happened again, by the way. Every book after that has been a good, 3 years minimum, But yeah, so that's how I sort of started. I was always looking for like a creative outlet. So when I was at SABC, yes, I was like working in television, but as a commissioning editor, I was, on the other side and not necessarily behind the scenes on set or writing. And so for me, writing novels was like my creative expression. So I was really I'm glad I was able to use that outlet, even though I was working for the SABC at the time.
And they're novels, right? So they're the books that you write. I'm actually going to order the book this week from Yana. I'm talking to you about it. Specifically Somersaults caught me. That's the one that caught my attention. So I'm definitely going to do that. So you write, it's mostly romances, or is it, give it a little bit of background about the books you write?
Sure. So the first 2 books I wrote were romance novels, Poetry of Love and 3 Dates. There was a call made by a publisher in Cape Town that was looking to publish love stories in an urban setting. And they literally gave you the brief. They were like, we want 10 chapters, and the boy has to meet the girl, something has to go wrong, and they have to end up happily ever after, So I was like, perfect. I can stick to the brief and I get published, So that was in 2010 and 2011, and 2013. But then in 2015, I released my first self-published book, which is called 3 Sisters. And that is in no way about romance. It's about women who go through abusive relationships.
Oh, wow.
And
I just wanted to get that one.
Right, you should. Because it's so different from like my usual style. I wanted to stretch myself. I wanted to see if I could, like in acting, they say you're kind of typecast. I don't want to fit like the mold of writing. I wanted to sort of stretch myself and see what more I could do and explore different topics that were heavy and that were social issues, And that was in 2015. It was actually named one of the top 6 books by OK Africa in 2016. So I was very proud of myself for that. And then the 4th one, the one you just mentioned now, Somersault in the Hailstorm, is my latest baby, and I'm so proud of her. I feel like out of all the books I've written, Somersault is it's like my treasure almost. It's the closest to my heart because it's the one book that has a character that most resembles me. There's a character in there, it's about friendship essentially, but there's a character in there who wants to become a writer on a soapy, which is what I do for a living. and she's battling issues of mental, of like depression and stuff. You know, she has issues of like speaking to her friends about it. She doesn't really feel like she fits in. She's always comparing herself and thinking my friends are better off. And, you know, I'm the one who's sort of trying to find my way in life and they've got established careers and whatnot. But essentially it's a book about friendship, and the other two friends are going through their own issues as well, you know, so through their own trials and through their own journeys, then they're able to sort of have their friendship evolve the more they open up to each other about what they're going through, and the friendship grows from there. And I think it's a very, and I think every girl goes through that, right? Like we go through so many changes in life, especially as a young adult, where you start off as a student, you like in varsity or whatever, then you start working. That's like a different version of you. And then you buy your own home or your own car, you start a family. All of those different stages require a different version of yourself. So if you can't evolve with the friends that you've been friends with for a long time, then it sort of makes you wonder about if the friendship can grow, you know?
Yeah, you're asking questions, essentially. It's finding yourself and finding yourself within friendships. And I think that is, and you know, you don't always understand that some friendships don't evolve with you and some do. So it's, no, I hear you. I'm very excited for that. I'm all for friendships and novels. So I read a lot of novels. And I've always said more friendships, more friendships. So yeah. 100%, I'm really keen. That is amazing. I'm keen to read that.
Once you've read it, can we come back and do like a chat about
it? Yes. No, 100%. I'd love to. Yeah, another year.
Awesome.
So, and then where do you draw your inspiration from?
Ooh, inspiration. Sure. And I think this is why I found Somersaults the most challenging, because it's the only book that I wrote when I didn't have a full-time job. I was working as a freelancer, and so finding the time to finish it was challenging. But my inspiration comes, I don't know. It's like air. I don't know. Like, I don't think about it. I don't try to channel it. I don't try to sort of get in the flow. I just let the ideas pour out, essentially, you know.
It's almost intuitive for you.
Yes, because I always worried, like if I have to sort of wait for inspiration, and yet I'm a creative and that's what I do for a living, then are we gonna eat inspiration? No. Like, you just sort of have to just dig deep and do it. Like, yeah.
And then how have you managed it all? So how have you managed doing a production company, being an author? I can imagine that having the production, you have to be pretty hands-on with all the kinds of different, elements of it, from filming to script writing, to making sure everything goes fluid. So how do you manage it all? Even writing a novel in 3 years while doing all of this when you're freelancing, how?
I'm obsessed with finishing. Like, I have this obsession with like anything that I start, like creatively, I have to finish it. Even like in other like areas of my life as well. Like, I'm just like obsessed with it. So I find the time. But it becomes easier to balance when you realize just how different each function is. So when I'm writing a script for one of the companies that I work for, that's what I'm doing in that time frame, If I'm putting together a proposal to get funding for one of my projects in my production company, then I dedicate that time to that. If I'm writing a book, I give myself leeway with books because that can stretch on for a while. But essentially, when I was still working full-time, I would write my books when I came home from work. I love working at night when it's like still and silent. So I was like the 3 a.m. girl, and then like catching an hour before having to wake up to go to work and then doing it again the following day. But that was when I was still working full-time. But now as a freelance writer, as a sometimes producer with my production company, somebody who's writing novels, and somebody who's a mother as well, and also directing when I can. Essentially, it's just realizing that whatever it is that I'm doing at that time is what I'm doing. And I just sort of give it my 100% and I focus on that. And I make everything else work around that particular thing until it's finished. And then I move on to the next thing. So it sounds daunting and it sounds like it's a lot of stuff, but once you sort of get in the mind frame, like with producing, for example, it's so analytical. It's so different from writing a book or a script, which is so much more creative. So with producing, it really is it was really encompassing that role fully and literally making time for it. I mean, when I shot Single Diaries, I was working as a full-time storyliner and I had to quit my job because there was no way I was going to be able to, you know, go into pre-production, find the crew, find the locations, find the cast, and then go on set and direct it, and then go into post-production while still storylining for a soapy. So I had to quit my job, and you sort of learn to prioritize and make the best of what you can, you know, what you have at the time to make what you're trying to do, you know, happen.
And in terms of the South African landscape, do you feel that there's just, because I've always had this association, so I have a bit of a photography background as well, and I've always wanted to go into making films, but not necessarily anything with a storyline, just inspirational type of films and things like that. But I've always found that South Africa, it's very rich. We have such a big we actually have so much talent in South Africa when it comes to television and movies. And how have you found that landscape for yourself? I know you said that you got your break in 2006, but since then, how has it evolved for you? Like, what do you feel it's becoming right now? I'm just saying, can you hear me? Okay, I'm asking how
I can hear you perfectly now, yeah.
How do you feel the landscape is changing now and evolving? What is it becoming when it comes to production and television?
Sure, I think the content we're producing is much more global. Like the world has opened up immensely, you know, because of things like Netflix and Amazon and Showmax. You know, we're able to sort of stream content from anywhere in the world, and it's on your laptop, it's on your TV much faster than before. And I think because Netflix, for example, is accepting South African content onto their platform, it really gives you an opportunity to sort of think bigger and not just think necessarily about your local audience, which is your traditional media with your multi-choice and your SABC and ETV, but really you can explore topics that are a little bit more eccentric, you know, that push the envelope. If you look at like Blood and Water, you know, it's kids in high school, but the content is for more like family viewing because the topics and the issues they go through are so adult, you know, it's so global. So I think the world is changing in that way because in as much as we've got access to their content, and as much as we have access to outside content, we can also like watch everybody else's content. So it really gives you the scope of like what's happening in the world, how you can push your own creative talent. Like as a director, it's like when you watch a film like Roma, which won an Academy Award, I think 2 years ago, and it's set in Mexico, just the filmic style of it, the stylistic way of it being shot, just pushes the boundaries, you know? So I'm excited about our landscape because it feels like we're part of a Pan-African and part of a global conversation. Of course, you know, Beyonce did a whole film about Disney with Black is King, working with creatives from the continent and from South Africa. I mean, casting people like Warren Masemola and Nandi Madida, and working with musicians who are South African and African, you know? So, I mean, I think it's amazing. I love to see it. I think it's absolutely, that's inspiring. There's the answer for your question earlier, inspiration. That's it.
Inspiration. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I almost hear it as it seems like, you know, as viewers, we've had access to global content. Now it's also an opportunity for global viewers to really get into what it means to be African, because in the old days, you know, Africa was seen as this one country, and now the world is like opening up, realizing that we have so much to offer, and there's so much.
Absolutely.
And Blood and Water was also fantastic. I love that. The scale of the production and everything, it's like South Africa is right up there.
Absolutely. No, we really are. in terms of photography, in terms of fashion, music, you know, comedy, whatever content, like DJ, whatever it is, we have it. And then some, you know, even the ones who are undiscovered, even the ones who aren't on the
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and yeah, I know this is a different kind of question, but do you work with a lot of like undiscovered actors and crew members and things like that? You do.
I mean, I feel like somebody knows you some way, you know what I mean? But to answer your question, I work with people who are small, who are known in small pockets, as well as people who are like known on bigger platforms. I think the thing for me isn't necessarily about like how famous you are or how not famous you are. It really is about, do you embody the character that I've written? Like if I've written a script and I'm looking to cast somebody to play the role, whether people know you on Instagram or they know you on SABC or they don't know you at all, the thing for me is the character that I wrote, the thing that I had in mind, if you encompass that, then I'm going to work with you regardless, you know? As far as music is concerned, absolutely. And it's always nice to see people grow. Like I'm a big advocate for growth and for like just sharing with as many people as you can and not having like a prerequisite of who you're going to work with, you know, because that really limits you as well. Because if we're all scrambling for the same popular cast or crew, well then who's going to work with everybody else, you know? Because I'm also not from like the school of popularity, you know, I'm not necessarily like one of the major players in the industry. So it would really be like confusing even to myself to like try to work with people and I'm like, but why? This doesn't make any sense. But to be honest, like as far as crew is concerned, I don't really work on set that much. So the crews that I have worked with have either been recommended to me or I've seen their work somewhere. But yeah, I think if you can do the job, then I'll definitely work with you. And if you are what I had in mind when I wrote the character, for sure.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Because I love how you're saying that it's who you are and like doing something that's also true to you. So if you had to go the opposite way, then it didn't like gel for you. No.
Exactly.
And then, okay,
absolutely.
So I know you mentioned earlier to me before we even started the recording that this brand thing, you know, I find your personal brand, I love your hat, I love who you are and how you speak, and I feel like your personal brand is just your personality that comes through, but you have quite a strong personal brand. What does that mean to you? So I can tell you what I feel that means to me, but what does that mean to you to say that you're representing a personal brand within your production company, as an individual? What does that mean to you?
I don't actually know what that is. I don't know, like if personal brand is like your personality and how that shines through in your work. I feel like I need a bit of guidance with this.
Okay, well, I'd love to. So personal branding, Beyonce. So yes, the company, but there's also Beyonce. And before the company even existed, Beyonce was always Beyonce. So, and I think how I see it in terms of how people resonate with Beyonce isn't because of the products you know, you can even say the music. People love her because she emanates this confidence. She emanates imprint that she wants to have on the world. And whether that is empowerment, you know, that is her kind of personal brand that she puts out there. How do you feel about it now?
I get you. I think if storyteller is a personal brand, then that's definitely the category that I fit into, because that's always been like the backdrop for everything that I do, whether it's, you know, writing a script or a book or, you know, whatever it is, whatever creative expression I find at the time. Storytelling is always like at the forefront. It's the bedrock and it's at the forefront. It really is what I try to encapsulate, I guess, in my personal brand. And I think branching out from that would be authenticity, you know, connecting with people on a real level, telling stories that resonate with your local audience. This is very important to me before even trying to get them to resonate like with the global audience. And what I'm finding interesting is that, like with the Single Days of a Josie Girl, it is in English in parts, it's in Setswana, it's in Sesotho, there's a bit of Zulu, but it's been nominated in Rio, you know, it won an award in Asia. So I think for me, with that resonance in place through my storytelling with my local audience, then it can really, you know, be accessible to audiences internationally, not just because of the language, but because of the story that's essentially being told. Yeah, so I thank you for bringing that up, because I always wondered, like when people say, "Oh, your personal," I don't know. I've never known really how to identify a personal brand with who I am and what I do. So I think, yeah, now I get it. Yeah, so I'm happy for that question.
That's really why I thought of you to interview as well, because for me, that's what inspires me about you, is that everything you mentioned of when you now heard, you made the connection of what personal branding potentially could be for you. That's what I pick up.
Yeah.
I pick up this, it's almost like coming home and hearing a story from, you know, a loved one telling you a story, and you just like listening to their day. That's what I feel like when I speak to you, like warm and welcoming. And that authenticity, 100%. I like feel your authenticity whenever you speak, and just who you are resonates. Even on social media, that's what I get from you, you know. It doesn't feel forced to me. That's why I said you're inspirational to me, not just because you're so talented, but because of it feels like you're not pretending to be anything else. You're just who you are.
That means a lot to me, because you're speaking with somebody who struggled to fit in, always wanted to fit in, was never the cool kid. I was skinny as hell, tall, wore glasses from 9 years old all the way throughout high school, you know? So it's been a process of acceptance and just going through, you know, becoming, you know, a woman and all these things. And so to hear you say that in 2020, when I'm turning 40 in 3 months, is in 2 months, oh my gosh, is sure. It really, really blesses me. It really, really, really blesses me. So thank you for that.
Oh, I'm glad I was able to give you that today. What advice would you like to offer to our young women or little girls in South Africa specifically, if they want to become content creators of any kind?
Sure. I think the advice that I would give young girls is that there's so many trends to follow, right? There's so many inspirational people, content creators on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and whatever have you. But the advice that I would give them is that if you want to become a content creator, then become a content creator. And don't try to fit in with whatever the trend is. You know, when I was younger, people say to me, be yourself. And I had no clue what that was. It was through a process of discovery that I discovered who I really am. But if you're creative, then you have a creative voice. And your creative voice will always be your voice, whether you are 2 years old or 12 years old or 16 or 24, it's always going to resonate with your spirit. It's always going to resonate with who you are at your core, no matter what age you are. So don't be afraid of sharing your voice with the world, and believe in yourself like there's no tomorrow, because people will dissuade you. People will try to convince you to pursue other jobs or careers or whatever the case might be. And people always try to also maybe get you to compromise who you are to get the numbers or to get noticed or, you know, to buy the latest clothes or whatever. But none of that is necessary if you are telling your story, you know? And even if 5 people watch you, they are 5 people. They weren't watching you before. And that 5 is going to grow to 10. It might not be overnight, but it's 10 more people who know you and who know your work. So give yourself the grace to grow at your pace, you know, and don't put pressure on yourself to be like anybody else, because by virtue of you doing it, it means that it hasn't been done before. So don't try to be like anybody else. Really just follow your own voice and follow your heart as far as creativity is concerned, because essentially it's your creativity.
Yeah. I think so often we're told, I love how you've said that as well, because I think that so resonates as well with the way that I was raised, where people, my mom has been always very supportive, and she's always encouraged me to say, you know, just be yourself. But often you don't know who yourself is, you know. So I think everyone resonates, most people must resonate with that, because you first have to kind of go on that journey of discovery. And my journey as well was just following the heart. So that was my discovery. When you follow your heart, you find yourself.
Absolutely. And it's gonna come with bumps and bruises. It's not easy by any shot or any measure, but essentially it's like when you finally find the thing you were looking for within yourself, it's like coming home to yourself. It's the most peaceful, joyful space, you know, that you could be in, because nobody can dissuade you from who you are. And that's a powerful, powerful tool to have.
Oh, thank you so much. I think that's a perfect note to end the interview on. And I'd love for you to share just with the audience. I'll obviously link descriptions below, but where can we find your books? Where can we find your series? All of that. So I'll put the links in, but you can also just address the audience and let them know where they can find you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Liz. So I've got a YouTube channel. My production company is called Mona Lisa Productions, and the YouTube channel is on YouTube with the same name as the company, Mona Lisa Productions. My books are available directly from me. I'm starting to do markets and, you know, just trying to get my stuff out there. I am still trying to find exhibition, like in bookstores and stuff like that. But if you do follow me on Instagram, Tshego_Monaisa, and on Facebook, Tshego Monaisa author, I will be updating you know, like where the books can be found and when I'll be at markets and so on and so forth. What else? Oh, my short film, Tabazimbi, is going to be running from the 25th of October, which I think is Sunday, to next week, Wednesday, 25th to 28th October. I'm not quite sure what the days of the week are, but it's part of the SA Horror Fest, which is running now in Cape Town, and it's virtual. So I'll send the link, post the link on my platforms, on Facebook, as well as on Instagram and Twitter. And then people can just like watch the short film.
Oh, that sounds exciting. I didn't even talk to you about it with the Horror Fest. Is it
right? Exactly.
Yeah. Is it a horror short film?
It's actually a supernatural short film with elements of horror, but it's so difficult finding supernatural festivals. I was like, let me just send it and see what they say. And they were like, yay. I was like, okay, great. Which is what happened with Get Out, actually, which is, it's inspired by Jordan Peele's Get Out. Oh, and really? That's a supernatural as well, but it was classified as a horror. So I was like, maybe to some people it means the same thing. I don't know.
I think anything that's eerie, people tend to be like, okay, Horror Fest.
Yeah, it's definitely eerie, like what you mentioned earlier about like the type of content that I create, like writing love stories. With Tabazimbi being a supernatural, I was like, I've written the single diaries of a Jersey girl. I've done all this like rom-com stuff. This is what I'm going for now. I'm going to do a supernatural, which was really, really fun.
Sounds very exciting. I'm also going to check that out. But
perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. You know, like earlier on, you were speaking about like personal brand and like, how what you are and who you are shines through in your work. And that's what drew me to you as well, actually, because we met through the Lionesses of Africa Accelerator program, and none of us knew each other when we would like do these courses for like 3 hours every Monday. And at some point I was starting to feel like in a sea of like familiar yet unknown faces. Like everybody's familiar, but I don't really know anybody. And the one morning we were outside pouring coffee before going in, and you just gave me the best hug. And I'm such a hugger. I was like, oh, I literally melted in your arms. I was, like, oh, I was a paddle.
I'm not bragging.
So
it's one of my gifts to hug, and also to like, I just know when someone needs a hug. I'll just put that out there. I'm bragging.
It was exactly what I needed. And it was so warm. And that's exactly what I think of your personal brand. Like when I think of you and the work that you do and the photos and all the beautiful, creative, aesthetically pleasing, it's like,
thank you.
Yeah, you're really a class of your own.
Thank you so much. Together we make this world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you for having me. I've loved having the chat. And learning about my personal brand and having an opportunity to speak about my work. It's always like nice to speak about like work you've created. So thank you.
And I'm definitely, after I've read the book, I'm definitely going to take you on that, doing another video about it.
The chat, right? Yes.
Yeah, definitely. But thank you very much.
Amazing.
I'm just quickly going to sign off. Thank you for watching. I'll put all the links below so that you can find Tshego and also Mona Lisa Productions. And yeah, share with us what you thought of this. Give a lot of love to Tshego. I think she'll appreciate the follow and subscription to her YouTube channel as well. And have a lovely day. Bye.